Hello ladies and gentlemen, in this video I would like to address an issue in Prepared version 3 that I think is a bug. Why is it a bug? Because it does not exist to the same extent in FSX or FSX Steam Edition. And that bug becomes apparent if you taxi at a big international airport during nighttime. I'm talking about the floating taxiway lights in the center that have a green color. Let me show you what I mean. I have prepared already running, and the sim time is set to night, and the airport is Chicago O'Hare International Airport. In the real world, the big international airports have center lights on the taxiway lines that guide pilots through the taxiways during night. And in the simulator, you can see that these lights seem to float a few feet above the ground in the air. And that problem is particularly pronounced if you use a small aircraft such as Piper Cub, as you see here. And you would agree that these lights are not nice to look at. The blue lights that you see on the sides, they do float in the air in the real world as well, because those lights are mounted on a stick or a cone. But the green center lights, they're usually engraved into the ground. So if you pan around in the outside view and if you taxi, they don't really look realistic, do they? And with an airplane small as this, the lights actually exceed the height of the wheels. And as I said, this problem does not seem to exist in FSX. Let me actually demonstrate that. I'm gonna take a few minutes off and be back with FSX at the same spot. And this is the same situation in FSX Steam Edition. As you can see, the green lights on the center of the taxiway do not float nearly as high as in Prepared version 3. You can spot some floating if you look from very close and from a very low angle, but if you sit in the cockpit, the floating is not really noticeable. And this is one aspect where I think that FSX still has an edge over Prepared. I have no clue what happened over the months and years when Prepared was continuously updated to newer versions. At some point I know that the lighting engine was modified to offload it from CPU more onto GPU, and something happened to the position of the taxiway center lights. So we can only speculate what happened, and I actually brought up this issue on the forum of Prepared, and so far there's been no official response by Lockheed Martin. So that leaves us with having to live with these floating taxiway lights. Well, there is some good news. In this video, I'm gonna introduce one tool, one add-on that replaces these floating taxiway lights by a more accurate representation. So I'm gonna exit FSX and go on with explaining what this add-on is about. The tool is called Airport Wizard, and it's available at flightsimtools.com. The purpose of this tool is to replace the default taxiway center lights as well as the blue edge lights by a more realistic looking version. On top of that, that tool also allows you to enhance your taxiway lines by replacing the segmented default ones by a more curvy and smooth version. So that's what you get on the top, but I don't want to focus on the taxiway lines. I'm gonna focus on the taxiway lights. So let's get back. The tool, now, and this is the bad news, the tool costs money. You have to pay $14.95 if you want to get the full version, and I know almost everything that's developed these days for Flight Simulator costs money, but you have to keep in mind that if you are the developer, you certainly want to be compensated for your scarce time and energy to develop the add-on. So I think it's fair to pay money for this tool. And now comes the good news. That tool is available as a trial version. If you use the trial version, you can modify all airports within the country of Belgium. So one more time, if you download and install the trial version, you can only modify airports in Belgium. But if you want to modify all airports around the world, you need to purchase the full version. And if you want to save some money, I can recommend to purchase the tool on PCAviator.com. If you purchase through PC Aviator on a Tuesday, it's going to be 10% less. This vendor gives you a discount by 10% each Tuesday. So that makes it, instead of $15, $13.50. And if you are a regular buyer at PC Aviator, you get discounts of $5 on a regular basis. So if you have a discount of $5 plus you purchase it on Tuesday, you end up paying $8.50, which I think is more than a fair price. Okay, let's go ahead and download the newest version. And if I say the newest version, I don't think that it's very recent. Actually, the latest version was published in 2010. And I think the first version came in 2008. So you could consider this as ancient for flight simulator times. Now, here's the problem. If I want to download the software, the Windows Defender, which is the default antivirus program for Windows 10, is against me downloading this file because he thinks that it contains a virus. But I can tell you, I've been using this tool on Windows 7 for many months and I've had no issues whatsoever. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna deactivate Windows Defender so that it does not get in the way. Okay, so let me shut it down. And we can now conveniently download the version. And by the way, if you want to download it and you're not sure if you want to purchase it or not, you can still just download this link, this version here, because if you at some point decide that you want to buy the full version, what you buy is basically a key. So if you buy the key from this store or from another store, you can just type that key into the window that you will be presented and you can activate the full version through it. For now, let me just install the program. That's here, Airport Wizard. And again, make sure that if you use the Window Defender, that you have turned it off, because I tried to install it, and when I ran this program, Windows Defender did strike and prevented me from executing that program. So I've laid Windows 10 to rest for a while, and let's go ahead and install. Now, at some point you will be asked if you, the program will ask you to allow to install a tool or to install a file called moduleinstaller.x. And with this one, you can click no, because you don't need that for prepared. You may need that for FSX, but not for prepared. So let's click on no. Okay, the installation is successful. And now let's run it for the first time. You can find it under flightsimtools.com, Airport Wizard. Okay, and if you open the program, it asks you to direct the program to the folder where you have installed your prepared simulator. Now, Don't do anything yet, because there's going to be a problem. If you direct the window to your prepared main installation folder. Let me demonstrate that. So on my system, Prepared is located in the default folder under Program Files, Lockheed Martin, and Prepared v3. And if you do that, you will see that there are no airports that you're able to modify. And this is certainly not what we intend. So I'm going to show you one trick that will allow you, or basically a trick that will make the program think that it sees your FSX installation, although in reality you use Prepared. And the reason why it's not working currently is that back in 2010, when the latest version was released, Prepared didn't exist yet. So the developer of the program didn't know, well, that's what I think, didn't know that Prepared was in existence. And what you have to do, there are two things that you have to do here. First, locate your Prepared main installation folder and locate your Prepared executable. Make a copy, paste it somewhere, and rename it into FSX. And that way, the program will think that you have FSX installed in this folder. Don't worry, Prepared won't mind if you have another executable called FSX. They will live side by side without interfering against each other. And the second thing that you have to do is, and let's assume for now that you have only Prepared installed, but not FSX. On my system, I have installed both FSX, Steam Edition, and Prepared. If you have installed FSX, then you can just direct the program to use your FSX folder. But again, I make the assumption that you don't have FSX installed, so keep that in mind in the following when I will give an explanation. Okay, the second thing you have to do is to access your program data folder and Lockheed Martin, and then Prepared version 3. In this folder, you have stored various kinds of configuration files for scenery, aircraft, terrain, and so on. And what you need to do is to duplicate this folder, paste it somewhere temporarily, and now make sure that you rename this folder into FSX. Okay, and after that, access the Microsoft folder. Now, in my situation, because I have already installed FSX, it's already there, but again, we pretend that FSX does not exist on your system. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to temporarily delete my FSX folder and paste the fake one, which actually refers to the configuration files of Prepared. So I'm going to cut and paste. Okay. And if I open the airport wizard now, and I again direct the tool to my Prepared main installation folder, you see, now it's scanning all my default airports. Fast forward, this is the user interface of the airport wizard, and as you can see, we are still in the trial mode, and we can only edit airports in Belgium. If you want to edit all airports around the world, you have to purchase the key and type it here to have the program register the key. For now, I'm gonna edit the Brussels International Airport because that's the biggest airport in Belgium, and it should have the green Centerway lights by default. So I'm gonna click on EBBR, Brussels National Airport, and let's magnify the window. If you do that, you will be presented the layout of the airport. And now you have the option to add features to the airport that you want the airport wizard to improve. So let's add the taxiway center lights and the edge lights. I'm not going to focus on the other elements. In fact, I've noticed that if you try to add the center lights, you might have some buildings removed by the center lines. I don't know why, but just to let you know that if you want to modify the center lines, there might be some buildings that get deleted. And the way that this program works is that it does not replace the textures by default. It simply generates a scenery file where you have all the lights placed one by one. And when you activate the scenery file in the scenery library, you basically get the lights added separately to your existing default airport. Okay, so that's the general scheme of the functionality of the airport wizard. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna click on apply, and that will prompt the airport wizard to generate a scenery file that contains all of the lights. And I'm gonna exit the program. I'm gonna start prepared. Well, actually, I've prepared already running to save time. And here we are at Brussels International Airport. The lights that you see are still the default taxiway lights, which do not look good because they're floating so high. To activate the lights generated by the airport wizard, you need to activate them in the scenery library. And I'm going to show you what you have to add in your library to have them active. So click on that area and then browse to the following folder under Program Data, FlightSimTools.com, Airport Wizard, and Scenery space FSX. So you click on the Scenery space FSX folder, click OK, and let's rename the title by something more indicative. So let's call it Airport Wizard. And it's important that you place the entry above all other entries, because if you placed this entry somewhere at the bottom, the default fget file or the default file would get priority over the modified, and you wouldn't see the modified taxiway lights. So now let's click OK and see what happens. Voila! Well, what do you think? I think the lights look much better than in the default state. Well, let's have a closer examination. As you can see, no longer are the flights not floating in the air, but you also have a situation where the intensity of the lights changes depending on the vertical viewing angle. So, as you see, if I decrease the angle and if I get closer to the bottom, the intensity goes up, whereas if I increase the vertical angle, the lights get dimmed. And that is consistent with what you have in the real world. The lights are basically composed of two parts, as you can see, this one and this. You know, each one radiating in each direction, and if you get closer to them, you will have your intensity changing, you know, depending on how close you are. While if you look from the very top, you will see almost no light. Okay, and let's examine the blue edge lights. So the blue edge lights not only are attached on a stick, as it is the case in the real world, but they also emanate this distinct glow. And I think it looks much better than just having a dot floating up in the air. So, based on the first judgment, I would say that this tool is definitely worth its money. Even though this tool is quite old, from 2010, but I think that does not diminish its value and its quality. Let me show you something. Not only do you get benefit during night, you can also see the lights, well, not the colors, but the actual installations of the devices during daytime. So let me select daytime and let me show you how the lamps look during daytime. Okay, so let's look at the edge lights first. Okay, so we still have the sticks with the lamps attached, so that looks good. And the Centerway lamps, as you can see, they're barely visible, but they are there. Okay, so if you taxi during daylight, obviously they don't shine green, but you can see that they are there, unlike with the default state where you don't see them during daytime at all. They just appear as dots during night, but during daytime you don't see anything. And that's not how the situation is in the real world. In the real world, you can see the lamps at any time. Well, of course, if it's dark outside, they are active. So, in conclusion, I would say that for me personally, I cannot taxi without these lights anymore using Prepar3D. So to me, the investment has definitely paid off, and I would recommend to anyone who is serious about flying Prepar3D to buy this tool if you prefer landing and departing from default airports. Obviously, if you have some high quality add-on airports, they bring their lights with them. So if you have add-on airports, you should not apply any modifications to those airports. But if you use a default airport and you know for sure that the center lights exist there, because not every airport has these lights. It is a fact that the big international airports like JFK, LAX, ATL, and then Frankfurt, London Heathrow, Paris, and so forth, they do have those center lights, but smaller airports don't have those green center lights. They do have the edge lights though. So, whether you intend to purchase the key or not, I would just say have happy landings, happy takeoffs, and happy taxiings. So long.